Today, I have a great guest, a guy I've admired for a very long time, been following his climbing, all the first ascents he's done, and the contributions he made to the climbing community over the many years he's been climbing. And what I really appreciate about Mark is he does it for fun, and that's kind of what I'm in for it too. So I'm really happy to have you on the podcast today, Mark. Thanks so much for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you, Don. Glad to be here.
So I always like to start with the origin story because everybody has their origin story. So how did you get started climbing?
Um, I was a sophomore in high school, and my sister's boyfriend, they were seniors. He decided he wanted to get into rock climbing. And this is 1972. So rock climbing was on nobody's screen. It was an oddball sport. I mean, people had no idea what rock climbing was. And really, to tell you the truth, I had been a Boy Scout, and any Boy Scout who hikes up any mountain thinks that they're Edmund Hillary. And I thought, well, okay. I mean, rock climbing seems like a good place to start, on my way to Mount Everest. So we went up to the White Mountains of New Hampshire and took a few days worth of lessons and just I mean, I was good at it. I mean, I'm a little guy, so I'm not on the football team, I'm not on the basketball team, but rock climbing seemed to fit me. And I was just sort of good at it. And so it just grabbed me, and it's been a lifelong thing ever since.
So you had some exposure in the White Mountains, but at some point you took the bull by the horns. Like what actions did you take? I mean, what did you do to kind of move that to a different place?
I was sort of, I had only been climbing a couple of years, and this is don't forget, we're talking 1972. 5'9". If you could climb in the East, if you could climb 5'10", you were a god. There was one 5'11" in all of the East. It was like Doug's roof at the Gunks or something like that. 5'11" was just starting to be done. I remember the Bridwell's article in Mountain Magazine, maybe, where he broke down the 5'10" A, B, C, D, but he didn't even bother with the 5'11s because there were just so few of them back then. So I started to be a good climber, but not climbing 5'10". I mean, I was just starting to be a 5'9" climber. One of my older buddies asked me if I wanted to go to Yosemite the next year to go rock climbing. Um, I walked into my senior year, first day of my senior year in high school. I walked into my student advisor's office and told him that I was taking 6 weeks off to go rock climbing in Yosemite, and I would do any makeup work any teacher wanted me to do. And he said, "No, I can't help you with that." And I went, "Okay." So I just changed advisors, and then I did all this makeup work, and like the principal called me into his office 2 weeks before I was supposed to go. And he said, "I don't know if I can let you go." And I went, "Well, whatever. I mean, I'm
You
18
can't
years
stop
old."
me. Like, what
Yeah,
are you
yeah,
going to
yeah, yeah.
shackle me?
I've done all this makeup work. If you don't let me go, that's just fine. I'll quit school and I'll make it up in summer school. And so 2 days before my trip, he called me and he said, "Okay, you can go." You know, so I went, and I had never been west of Washington, D.C. I had never been in a plane before. I flew into Aspen to meet a friend from New Hampshire, Eric Sanford. Flew into Aspen, and by the way, the runway at the Aspen airport in 1974 was dirt. So now there's several $1 million jets on that airline on that tarmac right now, but it was dirt back then. So we got into his van, we drove across Colorado, drove across Utah, Nevada, and I'm there, this New Hampshire kid going, "Oh my gosh." Drove into the valley. It was just about dusk. I could see the outline of El Cap, and I went, "Oh yeah, I am never going to climb that." And then we spent 6 weeks there, and Eric and I did the South Face to Washington column. The first 2-day route I ever did. And I had aid climbed a little. Back then, aid climbing was just something what you did, and certainly something of what you did if you were a Yosemite climber. So I had sort of prepared for that a little bit. Um, and then Eric and I went up on the triple direct. And don't forget, this is way before topos, way before 3-bolt anchors, way before cams. Hexes were just starting to be used. The nose had gone clean, but it hadn't gone clean a lot. So we're pounding pitons. We're pounding pitons for anchors, hauling 1-to-1. We got up to gray ledges and got snowed on, and we're sitting on this tiny little ledge, 2 feet by 5 feet. I've been back there since, which is just hilarious. With the portal edge and the stove and all that kind of stuff. And we're sitting back to back and we're freezing, and we spent the whole night there, and the next day it was sort of clear, and we started getting our rack together to go, because we're mountaineers. I mean, we're going to climb the mountain. And I remember Eric was just about ready to start leading off, and the clouds poured over the top of El Cap, and it started raining, and we went, oh yeah, we're out of here. So we we wrapped down. We didn't even know that there was a rappel route down the bottom of the heart. That was very. I mean, of course, no fixed ropes, of course. And so we wrapped down the whole Salve, the free what's now the free blast, and I remember we're wrapping down, and that open area past the base of El Cap used to be a parking lot. You used to be able to drive in there. And I said to Eric, I said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if your girlfriend came and got us?" And he goes, "Oh no, I told her not to use the van, not to move the van." So we're a couple of pitches off the ground, and we look over, and his van pulls up, and two guys jump out, and they come up to the cliff, and they. I mean, we're just stoked. We're soaked. We're cold. Down jackets and cotton. The most advanced materials known to man at the day. And we crowded into this van, and and she had made this giant pot of stew, and so we crowded in this van and ate stew and smoked dope for the rest of the day. And then and I was getting ready to leave. I only had like a week left of my trip, and I was wandering. A couple of days later, I was wandering around the base. I don't know why I was there, but I ran into a guy that I knew from New Hampshire, but I had never climbed with. This guy named Peter Cole, and he had just come down. He had tried to solo the Dawn Wall, but he didn't have any more experience than I did. But he was an aid climber, and so we're sitting there and we're talking. And he says, "Oh, I'd really like to climb El Cap," and I said, "Oh, me too." And he goes, "Well," he goes, "I don't want to do the NA. I don't want to do the nose. You're a free climber. Let's go do the Salve." And I went, "Oh yeah, let's go." And so the next day, we hiked loads and fixed pitches and took off. And I'm writing something about it right now about, I was 18 years old when I finished El Cap. I mean, I did not consider myself a competent 5'9" climber, but like I led the Hollow Flake, and back then, of course, the biggest piece of gear in existence was a 4-inch bong, and so you just simply had to do the Hollow Flake with no pro. That's just all there was to it. And I just went, okay, and I
What I got to
pumped it
do.
out. Yeah, same thing with the ear. I mean, I was the free climbing guy, so I got those pitches, and we did it. Top. This is what I want my life to be like. Like it really set the path for my life. It's when I mean, I've done the Salve a couple times. I've done a free rider a couple times. And whenever I get to the top, I always sit there and I go, wow, here it is. Here's the place. This is where it happened. This is it. This is where my life changed.
So this podcast is really focused on stories and the lessons we learn and the mental aspects of climbing. And I'd love to hear what are some of the things that you've learned most about what's important from a mental aspect of taking on climbs and just being in the climbing community.
I've never thought that I was the best climber around. I always thought that there were better climbers, but nobody seemed to be as dedicated. I mean, I always say that you need three things to be a great climber. You need three things to be a good climber. You need strength, you need technique, and you need desire. And so you can get strength, you can get strong, you can learn technique, but if you don't have desire, I can't I can't give you a book and have you learn about it. I can't tell you how to get desire. And I was just the guy who had more desire. I just wanted to do it. I mean, yes, I was a good climber, but Max and I used to laugh all the time that like we would go down to Yosemite and we would have a calendar of routes that we wanted to do. And it would be like, okay, we're going to do this route, then we're going to rest, then we're going to hike in, sleep at the base of this, then we're going to climb that, then we're going to rest. And, so like we had a calendar. And so we would get up in the morning at 8 o'clock, we're hiking out of the camp, we're going to go do something, because we wanted to do routes. And so we'd come back and we'd see the other guys. They go, "Well, what did you do?" And they go, "Oh, we went and drank coffee at the cafeteria until 11:30, and then we went bouldering." It's like, well, okay. I mean, if that's what you want to do, but I mean, we just climbed, the Crucifix or Rostrum, or we're hiking into Watkins tomorrow, or So Max and I were on the same page. We both had that desire. We both wanted to climb routes, and it wasn't because we're trying to build up some level of fame or anything. We would just look at stuff and go, wow, wouldn't it be cool to go climb up on that, to go free climb up there? That would be neat. Let's go do that. Or we would go, okay, to do that, we've got to do this, and then we have to do this, and then we have to do this, and then we have to do that. This is going to be cool. And so we would go over there and do these things, just because we wanted to do it. We both had that desire.
And I'll bet you that's why you're still doing it this many years later. Because I find definitely for me, I'm just that my motivation. I mean, I'm just motivated to go climb. And many people after a while just kind of get tired or do something else. But without that motivation, you don't really stay at it.
I'm 68 years old now, and so certainly my skills are diminishing. I'm not as strong as I used to be, but yet I go climb with Selena, and we just go have so much fun. Because for me right now, it's the moment. This is like I am climbing right now in this beautiful day on this beautiful rock with this wonderful friend. That's to me, that's the whole thing. It's what do you want to go climb? I don't care what we go climb. I mean, I'd like to go do something that's semi difficult, but I don't care. I just want to go to a beautiful place, you know. Um, and so, yeah, to me, it's just all memories and experiences. I always tell everybody when you're laying there in that bed with those tubes up your nose, and you're telling your last stories, you're not going to be saying, "Oh, remember I climbed that 513," or remember we, did the nose in 18 hours or something. You're going to be saying, "Yeah, remember we climbed that route and it was so fun, and it was a beautiful sunrise, and there were peregrines in the trees when we got to the top. That was so freaking cool." So those are the memories that you're not going to go, "Oh, remember I climbed that 512, or I did the nose in 3 hours," or, something like that. You just go, "Yeah, we had so much fun. Remember you dropped your water bottle? We had no water," that kind of thing.
Yeah. So when I was out in Las Vegas and I was talked to Selena, I had just spent a week with one of my climbing mentors, Fred Abul, who I met back in New York. We climbed in the Gunks and the Adirondacks a lot. It's where we met. And he was like one of my climbing mentors. And we took a trip last year out there and had a great time. We did levitation and other stuff. This
Yeah.
time we did this Black Orpheus climb. And
Yeah.
not the most difficult things we've done or whatever, but the adventure of it, like for us getting
Yes.
a band back together, right? Where we don't do that much trad climbing and never get a chance to climb together. But boy, I'll tell you, when it with the note with the things up the nose, and when I'm within remember, God darn it, Fred. Remember when we just
Yes.
did that thing? We froze our butts off, and,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was that's the thing. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, challenging yourself with grades and all that, that's fine. I mean, I enjoy projecting a route and, I enjoy that. But it isn't what defines me. It isn't what I'm going to remember at the end, you know? Yeah. And so just, I mean, Selena and I have so much fun when we go climbing. And to me, my other Hudonism you were asking about, one of them is if it ain't fun, it ain't done. I'm not going out there. I'm not hiking out there in the rain to go do this. I'm freezing my butt off. I'm not going to be out there. I'm going back to the van or whatever. If it ain't fun, it ain't done. I was on a couple of years ago. I was up on Sea of Dreams with Scott Richards, and we had humped all the loads and we had fixed pitches and we had spent the first day. And the weather report looked like for the next week it was going to be in the 50s, and the nights were going to be down into the low 30s. And we spent the first night, and I mean it was cold. I mean I had every single piece of clothing I had on, and the weather was supposed to look nice and everything, clear skies and all that, but highs of like 50, 55 kind of thing, 56. And and, and Scott woke up and we're sitting there, we're having breakfast, and he looks at me, he goes, we're breaking the first rule. And I go, you're right. And so we both immediately just leaned over and started dumping out the water and started packing stuff because we knew we're going down.